What's up everyone, Bradley Jack Design here with another design breakdown. This time we're going to take a look at this Florida State graphic I made. We were testing something where I worked to test some stuff with some acrylics, so this is a design I made for fun, just to test this out. So we chose Florida State as the subject, but let me show you what it took to create this graphic. So let me get rid of everything except for the background, and then we'll go ahead a little further and get rid of everything further. All right, everything's gone. So a lot of times people ask me where I find background images or how I make backgrounds, and a lot of the times it's made up of several different images. So it started off with this photo from Getty that I have, which has this sort of just stadium background with some football stuff and the sky, grass, and whatever. And then took a different photo I have of grass, masked that to just this bottom area here because I like this grass better than the original grass. I then didn't like the sky, so I put a different sky on top of that. And you can see it's not perfect, but a lot of the stuff covers the background, so it didn't really matter. So this is the initial background we're starting off with. I went ahead and added another layer, just some blue to get rid of some of this warm area, cooled it up a little bit. Then I went ahead and added the logo to the bottom here. So what I did was I took I'm trying to think how I did this. So these are all different gradient maps. That's a black. This is black and green for the grass. This one is this gold color and black. This one is a maroon color and a darker maroon color. And this one is white and a gray. So this is the logo down here at the bottom. So I have a light color and a dark color because the grass is going to be light and dark, and part of it is going to be spray painted. So I don't have the files in here. So what I did for this was I took the logo and put it on this area, made it perspective so it looked like it was on the ground. And then what I did was I duplicated that. What I actually did was, if you take a layer, let me take this layer, or this background layer. You can do new smart object via copy, which will make it a different smart object. So I did that a couple times. And then in each of these different layers, I deleted all of the aspects of it except for what that color was. So for this one, I deleted all the other colors in Illustrator that weren't white. This one, I deleted all of them except for maroon, so on and so forth. So with those gradient maps, I was able to make it so it looked like the logo was painted on the field like it would be on a field. So that's how I have the logo down there. I went ahead and added some smoke to the background so you can see this very, very bright blown out smoke. I went ahead and set the same adjustment layers of levels to it to get rid of some of the smoke, and then added the color lookup candle light to both of them to warm them up. I've noticed that if I use the candle light color lookup, it makes smoke and light and fog and stuff like that look way more realistic, instead of it being super blinding white. So that's the background we have now. So now we have the three players in the image itself. So we've got Jameis here. So this is the initial image of Jameis that I used. I went ahead and made some edits to it to make it look like this. And if I open that layer up, so what this is apparently it's rasterized like an idiot, but this is what the image is that I used. I used one of my actions to use an unsharp mask, do some camera raw editing, add a channel mixer, add a hue and saturation layer, and then I added a couple more to tweak a couple things. So I tweaked the yellow, which is actually an action I have, and then this one tweaked his skin. His skin was a little too yellow, so I went ahead and added it. I tweaked this area, probably some of the oranges, to make it more red or more real skin tone color. So if you want to edit something like this pretty easily, I have some actions available that will do most of these edits in one click. It'll do the unsharp mask, camera raw filter, this channel mixer, hue saturation layer, and then depending on which one you use, another hue and saturation layer to create this edit. but I guarantee you I pretty much hit that button, added a couple layers real quick, and did some quick adjustments to get this effect very quickly. You can find those in my shop on my website or on Creative Market, and I'll have a link below that you guys can take a look at. So on top of this Jameis layer, I have this layer here, which is adding a little bit of a glow behind him. Let me highlight this. So yeah, so this is just adding a teeny bit of glow around him to even out the lighting effects of Jameis himself. Then I have a curves layer on top of that you can see I boosted the right side up to brighten up his face because I thought his face was a little too dark. We printed this out on acrylic, so when you print things out, a lot of the times it's going to be a lot darker than it is on screen. So that's why I brightened his face up a bit. Then I didn't think the color was true on his helmet, so I went ahead and created a hue and saturation layer here, tweaked the yellows to add the saturation back in because it was a little desaturated, and painted it on the helmet here. Then I added this layer here to add this is just a layer with a soft white brush that I just kind of brushed on top of it, sort of like a light leak from the sun or the background that's on top. So that is Jameis. Then we've got Dalvin Cook over to the left, and I did the same effects to these. So this was the original image of Dalvin Cook. This was the edited one. I used the same editing techniques for that. I went ahead and added this other mystery layer that you can see what it does here. So it's getting rid of this sort of fringe up here that's black. So you can see the top right of his helmet's black. If I turn that on, I was fixing that so there wasn't a hard edge there. I then went ahead and brightened his face up too because again when it printed it was too dark. And then I added a similar white layer of this, so as if these lights are actually shining on him, they're sort of light leaking around his body. It also adds a little bit of dimension because it looks like he's actually in there. And then same thing with Deion. So original photo of Deion Sanders here, that is super old. There's a lot of color casting issues going on here. So I went ahead and made some edits to it. These are probably, the same edits, maybe an additional hue and saturation layer to tweak something. But I went ahead and added the same sort of edge glow to it to get rid of some of these edges. So you can see there, based on the background of the original photo, there's a little bit of an edge to it. So I went ahead and corrected that. Then I set up a curves layer to brighten his face up and to brighten up the face mask as well. Then I added another white layer on top of that for the sides of him based on where the light would be coming from. So those are the edited photos of the three players I chose for this. I then added some text. So I've got this text of the word faster in the gold color that FSU uses. I went ahead and put that into a group and set a bevel and emboss gradient overlay and a drop shadow to it. So it gives it a little bit of a drop shadow. It gives it a gradient overlay set to overlay at like 50%. So it has a gradient from the top to bottom. It gets darker. And then I added a little bit of a bevel and emboss to it so that there's a little bit of a highlight at the top. I then threw a gold texture on top of that set to overlay, and then a gradient map on top of it using the colors that FSU uses, so the gold and maroon that they use. Then if I turn that on, you can see this is what the final effect looks like for that. I also have white in here. It's important to note. That's why it still looks normal. So really the darker parts are a little bit maroon, but overall it's just a gold that they would use. Then I have their chief that rides on their horse. I'm forgetting the name right now. Do not murder me. Florida State fans. So I've got their chief here. This really nice photo. Before their game, he goes out there and throws the spear into the ground that's on fire. So I've got the chief here. I've got his shadow below him that you can see. I went ahead and added an additional layer on here to give a little bit more of a shadow, but this is just the original shadow from this photo with a gradient map on top of it, set to a smart object and then blurred, set to multiply. That's how I put a lot of shadows in. So we've got the chief here, got a couple edits made to him. I couldn't tell you what these do. They are adding a glow to it and a little bit of color. These are just color correction layers. So the tail was a little too dark, I think. You can barely see it. It's something I saw when I was initially editing it. So you've got the chief down there. Well, that doesn't look right, so I added some fire to his staff. Fire on staff thing. So this is just a photo of some fire. Looks like this. This is just a photo of fire. And I basically just rotated it so it looked like it was moving left to right. And then I added this photo of like a fireball on top of it set to screen. So now I have this layer, this curves layer, with some curves moved in the whites to be brighter for some general lighting. And I went ahead and painted that around areas of the players that I wanted to brighten up. So the faces, some of the highlights on the arms and the balls and their hands. So then I wanted to add, since I've got fog here in the background, I wanted fog here at the bottom. So what I did was I found this photo. This is a photo of just, as you can see, clouds from a plane. You're above the clouds, this is just clouds. So instead of trying to find photo of like fog on the ground, I just found photo of these clouds. Went ahead and put them on there, set them to screen, put a levels layer on top of it to add more contrast, so it was more defined of just, really, so actually no, so you can see the ground a little bit more. And then I masked out parts of the chief to make it so it looked like the chief was inside the fog instead of behind it or in front of it. Then I have some smoke in the front. So it's the same stuff I used in the back, I just made it a little bit bigger. Same levels layers on top of it so you can see through them a little bit better, with the same color lookups on top of it of candlelight. And then I masked out the top of it so it was only showing in this bottom area because we already have fog up on the top. Then this is where, again, most of the magic happens. We've got a lens dirt on top that basically affects the bottom area here with a little bit of a levels adjustment so you can see through it a little bit better. I have a color lookup of teal, orange plus contrast, which tweaks the colors a little bit. That's only set to 15%. I have drop blues set to 100%, which does this. So it's getting rid of a lot of blues in the background. And I did this because I don't want blue to be, I want it to be a very clean white with the main colors being the gold and maroon that they use. So the blue from the grass and from the sky up here is very distracting. So if I turn that on, you can see there's a lot more contrast now between the colors of sort of the black and white up here and the colors of the players in the front with their maroon and gold. Then I have a 2395 color lookup set to 37% to sort of brighten everything up, glue everything together. And then I have this techie overlay on top of it. So what this is a Illustrator file I made that I'm not going to go into too deeply. I can zoom around here. So this has a Florida State logo on it. Just found some techie vector graphics on here. I've got Dalvin Cook running back. I have his stats on here. I've got the Chief and Renegade on here. They've been around since 1978. Got some more patterns on here, their logo again. Again, other techie things, Deion Sanders, and I basically have their stats on here and certain things about them. And I took this initial image, and you can see I think this is Lorem Ipsum text even, it's not even meant to be read. I took this JPEG image and put it in Illustrator so everything would line up. Saved it out, threw it in here, set it to screen with a little bit of a color overlay on it because it was originally blue, but you can just, I made it white. Then I took that, duplicated it, set it to overlay with a Gaussian blur, and then set it to screen with a Gaussian blur to give the effect that it was what the acrylic would look like in front of it, is what the effect I was trying to go for to see what it looked like. So that's this Florida State graphic I made. I hope you guys learned something from this. I hope you guys enjoyed me walking you through the process of how I make graphics. If you have anything that comes to mind from this that you learned that you thought was cool, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have any other suggestions for design breakdowns or tutorials you want to see, drop a comment below. I love hearing what ideas you might want me to do. And other than that, just make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.